This is a 2022 shop tour for 731 Woodworks. This is, in fact, a two-car garage, and I've been able to maximize space using Organzation, which I'm going to talk about and show you today how I did that and the evolution of the shop in the last 5 years. All right, before we start the tour, I want you to understand that none of this in this garage existed 5.5, almost 6 years ago now, and I've continually built that up over time. I started with a circular saw that I borrowed, as well as 2 borrowed drills. That's the only power tools I had. I had a square and a tape measure, and we built from there. Let me show you around. I like working in the garage because I can just step right down and be at work. You may notice the green door is still there, despite my wife really wanting to paint that thing, and you can even see the black stripe where she started, but we've kept it green for now. If you want to see my studio setup, my computer setup, all that stuff where I edit all the videos and we do our live show, we'll go back through that green door after I tour the shop, and I'll show you around in there. Working in a two-car garage can get really cramped. I'm sure a lot of you understand that. And in 2022, my resolution for the shop has been organization, and I have invested heavily in that with different builds, tool walls, storage, all that stuff, and we're going to go over some of that today. When you first enter the shop, if you come through the garage door, which is behind me now, on the right is where I have my miter station set up. In years past, you've probably seen on the channel the giant miter station that I had that took up about 12 feet of length and stuck out much further, about another 12 inches further, and took up a lot of floor space. And that was a huge mistake starting out because I just didn't need all that space, and it was never finished. So one of the main builds this year has been the miter station, which I am absolutely happy with, especially since I've installed the new stop block system onto the miter station, which was after the miter station was built. I love this tool wall. This is from OmniWall. They partnered with me on a video for that, but it has been absolutely fantastic having it in the shop. And one thing about the OmniWall system that drew me to it is how these stay put because of their system they have built and because of all of the organization options you have with it. One of my favorite things about this is the socket set organization, the wrench, and the power tool organization that you get, and the shelves that you can get to store different things as well. It's just a really great system. Also on the top, you get that shelf included with this WEN XL system, and you can store things up there as well. Little tidbit, I have a hard hat that I started out in 1995. My dad gave me his old hard hat, and I used it when I started work in Milan Construction in El Dorado, Arkansas. And I've kept this all the way. My dad actually, him and his brothers went into business as Outlaw Brothers Construction for a while, worked for them for a few years. And this is the hard hat that I wore. The liner's gone, but I've always kept this hard hat just for keepsakes. I always keep it right up here on the shelf, so you may have seen it. Also up on the shelf, somebody sent me this too before. I love it. I do have a whole video on how I installed this OmniWall system and everything that goes with it. If you're interested in any of the tools, wall, anything like that you see, all you have to do is search 731 and then the name, and you should be able to find it. 731 Capex, 731 tool wall, things like that. You should be able to find it on YouTube. Starting out, when I first moved into the garage, I had a lot of space, and I thought, man, I'll never fill this up. Wrong. But one of the things that I failed to do was think ahead about where things are going to fit, how things are going to be laid out, and the best use of this space for me. Thinking about that, when I built the miter station, I purposely built it quite a bit shorter than the other one. This one's only 6 feet long at the max, but I wanted it that way so that my router table could slide into this spot right here. And that's another build that I have been more than happy with, is this router station build. It's just it's on wheels, so it's mobile. You can move it around the shop, and it fits in this space for me perfectly. The router table itself features the Craig router lift, which has been really fantastic for me. And then I use a kind of an inexpensive Tay Tools brand fence. And inside the router cabinet, I have this Bosch router. It's like a 2.25 horsepower. It's been more than powerful enough for anything I put to it, because I built these custom insert trays with the CNC to hold all of my router bits, parts, pieces, everything that I would need for the router table stays here. And then on the bottom, of course, we have drawers for extra storage, like my DeWalt routers down there, the router base, other jigs and things that I use right here at the router I can store all in one place, so I don't have to go searching for it in the shop. One thing I like about the miter station is it's primarily all plywood, so it was very easy to build. I did add some drawers to the miter station just for extra storage, and so far, thankfully, they're not filled up with too much junk. On this side, I just have shelves and an open slot, and I built that slot specifically for that WEN drill press that I have, because it just fits in there nicely and it keeps it off of the tabletop. The only downside of that is I'm less likely to use it because it is in there and I have to pull it out, set it on top of the bench, and then drill my holes and then put it back away. It ain't that light either. I will likely at some point build maybe a mobile cart for that as well, because is just not used in there. I've been a fan of WEN tools, and the WEN Drill Press hasn't disappointed me at all. It is a tiny bit underpowered. I have a review on this for a couple of years back, and it's served me well. The only thing I notice is when playing back videos, you can see this chuck area start wobbling, and I think that's probably affecting my, not probably, I know it is, affecting my accuracy of the holes somewhat, so I'll likely purchase a newer drill press at some point when I have space. But so far, the WEN has served its purpose here in the shop. On the other side, I just have a set of Forstner bits from Irwin, and then these Milwaukee. These aren't pack out, these are just the Milwaukee. They're very inexpensive, I think like 20, 30 bucks for these organizers. It's a great way, an awesome way to keep screws and things like that all in one spot. This side, something kind of unique that I've not seen before. What I'm using for dust collection is the Festool CT36E. It's got a HEPA filter in it, so that helps keep that fine dust out when it does suck it up. One unique thing that I did was I installed a splitter that splits the hoses over here into two different ones. And one goes straight to the top of the miter saw to collect the dust, and the other, I have a couple of hoses that I can use to clean up. Everybody else asks me, how do I keep my shop so clean? Well, I take quite a bit of time at the end of every day, or at least every other day, to vacuum and clean the shop. One awesome thing about this setup is the shop vac is Bluetooth. There is a Bluetooth button right here on top. All I have to do is push this button and it starts the vacuum. Push it again and it goes off. Now, splitting the hoses will absolutely kill the suction. So what I did was install two Festool blast gates, one on each side. I can shut off the hose to the miter saw and turn this one on, or vice versa, and that's how I keep the most suction possible on one system. Another thing I did was add some clamp storage to my wall, and yes, that is vinyl siding on the wall inside of a garage. That's kind of a common thing here in South Arkansas, and I got some comments about that in the past, about that being why it was there. I can't tell you other than this is how they build them here. And that was one of the reasons I was reluctant to attach anything to the wall for a very long time, but the longer I was in here, I thought, man, I'm gonna be here for a while, so I might as well start adding too. So this is clamp storage. I got pipe clamp, parallel clamp, and then F-style and quick clamp storage. These are from Rockler. Rockler makes these clamp storage holders, and they've worked out extremely well. Mobility on most everything is key for the shop. Because I am in such a small space, I need most everything to be able to move around, and that includes the bandsaw. This is a Rikon 326. It's a 14-inch bandsaw, and it's done extremely well for me. I've been very pleased with it. It's one of those tools that I had always wanted in the shop, and when I was able to get the opportunity to work with Yellowhammer Toolworks on this saw, I jumped on it because I'd wanted a bandsaw for so long. Initially, I went with a WEN mobile base, but it bent on me. If you saw the 5 tools I regret buying video, it was in that. I ultimately went with the Grizzly Grandpa Bear Crawl or something like that, and I put it together yesterday, and so far it's fantastic. I can tell it's gonna hold up because it's all tubing and not stamped steel like the WEN, so I'm very pleased with it. In the back corner of the shop, you may have seen the home gym. It takes up about a 12 by 12 area in the shop, and while a lot of people think that's crazy taking up that much space in a wood shop, I really enjoy having this. I use it at minimum 4 days a week. It's kind of my escape place to come out here early in the morning to get my workout in. I do get a lot of questions about dust control and the home gym setup. We'll get into that in a few minutes when I talk about dust collection. The center of the shop is the table saw, and this is a SawStop 3 horsepower PCS. This was an absolutely jaw-dropping, unexplainable gift from a friend, and I don't know how to explain that. Go watch the SawStop video for full details on that, but I'm still amazed at the generosity to this day. This is one of my favorite tools that I've ever gotten in the shop. It's so smooth. It operates so well. I have zero complaints other than the miter gauge, which they send with it is kind of cheap. Not kind of, it is. So I've replaced it with the Incra V27. It's one of my favorite miter gauges I've ever used because it's inexpensive and extremely accurate and well made. Good job, Incra. Not sponsored by Incra at all. I like the fact that this saw has 36 inches of rip capacity. There are very few times that I reach that limit. The table saw is also on a mobile base because there's only about 4 feet that I can get behind the saw to the garage door to make cuts. But if I do need to make longer cuts, I can easily move this around to this side and have nearly 8 feet of space to be able to cut and still use the outfeed table. So the mobile base on the saw is an absolute necessity for me. The workbench and outfeed table that I built a year or so ago is one of the main attractions of the shop, I guess you'd say. It's where I do the most work. I spend more time at this workbench than anywhere else in the shop. whether that be sanding, finishing, building, whatever. And so I wanted something that was very big to be able to lay all my stuff out. And I went with more than 4x8 because of the edge trim. And this has been fantastic. Before, I had a 3 foot by 5 foot work table, and it was always, I always felt like I was running out of space, like something would always hang over the end. I would have to block it up to complete the build. This, I rarely run into anything that can't fit on here. If it does, then I just move it off to the floor. It's one of the most challenging builds and one of the biggest builds I ever took on as far as lengths of time because of all the drawers, slide outs, storage options, T-track, and then of course embedding the YouTube 100,000 subscriber play button in the middle in epoxy and making sure it was dead flat with both sides so it was a functional work table. I didn't want to dip there or hump anything like that I couldn't use as a work table. It was an extremely challenging build and one that almost made me not cry but kick something when I started pouring that epoxy and it started generating that heat, and I thought the YouTube play button was going to disintegrate. You can go check out that video of this build if you're interested. When I built this, I wanted to add a ton of storage to the shop, and there's a couple of unique features on here that I really wanted in the table. But it does have 16 drawers of different sizes, 4 of these smaller drawers for hand tools and things like that. A little known secret, this top right drawer right here belongs to Miss 731. When I built the table, she said, I want one of those drawers. And so I gave her one of these small ones, and she has yet to put anything in it, so it remains empty to this day. So if she ever decides to put any tools in there or whatever, that's her drawer. For the most part, these house a whole bunch of random stuff, and I realized very quickly that I just continued to pile stuff in there that was very difficult to find. The bottom one, I keep all my T-track stuff, anything that I'm going to need up here on the work table, for the most part stays in this bottom drawer. Saw blades, dado blades, everything on this drawer. A lot of dowels and things like that go here. Random stuff. Random stuff. I call that a junk drawer. One thing I wanted to incorporate on the workbench was small part storage. Screws, nuts, bolts, brad nails, and these, similar to the Milwaukee I showed earlier, are excellent for that. And these pull-out drawers help me accomplish that. But these extend all the way out so that I can access all of this stuff, and I'm just able to pack more junk into a smaller, more organized space. This is organized junk. On the very bottom, I keep my dial max and all the parts and pieces that go with that joinery system. It's just a good way to help me keep that organized. One thing that I've come to realize on the workbench is the bigger drawers collect more junk. Especially this bottom drawer is basically turned into a giant, I don't even know how to say it. It's just so much stuff in there. I don't even know what all is in there. Like, it doesn't make sense what's in there. It's just random stuff. The middle drawer is very similar to that as well, but for the most part, this whole section here is junk except the top, which I have neatly organized with clamps and clamping squares and things that I actually use up here. Recently, I added this small clamp storage rack on the end of the workbench because it is inset. It is able to hold those clamps without being in my way, and it gives them a great place to be stored. This back side of the workbench is the same way. I've got 3 drawers. These are actually filled up with drawer slides. I bought a ton of them when I was working on this and wound up with a bunch of extra that I've used on other projects as well. And this one, just parts and pieces for dust collection, more random stuff. I almost wish I had built like multiple smaller drawers in this now that it's here, because the only drawers that stay functional are these top bigger drawers that are about 5 inches deep. These, I believe, are 9 or so inches deep, and they just collect so much crap. One of my favorite parts of this workbench is how this dust extractor stores underneath it without it taking up any floor space. It's just a great way to maximize space. It rolls easily in and out, stows away, everything's nice and neat. This part of the workbench I built specifically to hold my crosscut slip, and it fits inside this 36-inch opening. So I built it specifically for this so that I would have a place to store this jig. The bottom is collecting stuff, but useful stuff. I have the flattening sled that I used on the top of the workbench for the epoxy, and then the miter gauges and things like that I've kind of thrown under there. Now to the back left corner of the shop, lumber storage. All my sheet goods I've been storing against the wall for several months now because I found that it's the best way to store them. You just lean them up against the wall. As long as they're not to a very steep angle, they remain flat. I don't have any issues with that. But I also use that for longer boards like those 1x6s that are 10 foot long right there in the corner. I can lean those up and they're perfectly fine like that. The mini split, one of the best things I ever bought for this shop. It has changed the way I work because in South Arkansas it gets extremely hot. 100+ days, many days a year, and then very high humidity. It does both heating and cooling. I've got a whole video on that if you're interested. The dust collection in the shop now is the Laguna P-Flux 1. This is the 2022 year model. This only come out late last year, I believe. I had the previous one before. This one has a few more upgraded features that I touched on in that video. But for the most part, I have one hose that goes straight to the CNC, and then I have a flex hose that goes to any other tool that I need to, the bandsaw, the planer, the jointer, or even the table saw. This helps me keep this in this location. This is like a 20-foot flex hose, so it pretty much reaches anywhere in the shop. To go along with the dust collector, I have the Laguna Clean Air filtration system. And basically, it can recycle the air in this room about 20-something times per hour, I believe it is. But it has the 1 micron filter in there to filter out all that fine dust. And what I was talking about earlier in the gym, anytime I'm making fine dust, cutting a lot, CNC, anything like that, I'll turn this on. This also has a timer on it that will continue it running for an hour or 4 hours or however long I want, and then automatically shut off. It has 2 filters actually, one in the back and one on the inside. I really like having this, and it has made a big difference on the fine dust that lays around in the shop. There is still going to be fine dust everywhere. You're in a wood shop, but this helps minimize that. This is my little rolling cart. I have a video and a build plan, a very old video on how to build this. This is a super simple, super cheap way to build a rolling cart, and this is my next project. As a matter of fact, this week I believe I'm going to be starting on building a new cart. I have an idea in mind for this, not a flip cart. I got the Wahuda jointer, been using that for over 2 years. I got a 2-year review video I did this a little bit back. I just take this off the bottom of this, set it up on the workbench and use it, and then put it back away. That seems to be working out well for me for now. The planer is the DWS 735X, and I've had no complaints on it. It has been extremely good for me, and it was a gift from my dad for my birthday one year, and it's just been fantastic to have in the shop. I like that it's a 2-speed. It works extremely well on all hardwoods that I've tried it on. Very little snipe, if any. It's just been a pleasure to have in the shop. One of the most recent additions to the shop is the Husky Workbench Hutch Cabinet Combo. I purchased this on Home Depot about a month and a half ago, and it has been awesome. Now, I got this for a dual purpose. Number one was the resolution to be more organized, and this certainly helps me do that. With that pegboard background, I do love having this higher workspace. I use this quite a bit, a lot more than I thought I would actually. The side cabinets where I store paint, stains, and stuff on the left has really cleaned up the look of the shop, because before all of that was under the miter station, which was open and just ugly. It just didn't look good. And that was one of the other driving purposes of getting this for the background of videos, was so it looked cleaner other than those old shelves that were there. The right side over here is full of stuff. Let's not even look in there. The drawers though are very organized, and I intend to keep them that way. I'm hoping because most all of them are smaller drawers, I'm able to organize everything better. Top left, I got a lot of layout tools and things that I use regularly right here on top. On the right top, I've just got my Milwaukee drill driver set, M12 set, and then a couple of rasps and a couple of other things like that. The main big long drawer is where I put all my wrenches and things, and while I'm not a mechanic, there's a lot of times we had to put tools together or just need a wrench around the house, and I was tired of looking for the wrench that I needed in a pile of unorganized, mismatched, and a lot of times didn't even have the right size wrench. So I went ahead and purchased a set of Tecton millimeter and standard SAE wrenches, and then also a stubby set of gear wrench, ratcheting wrenches. I also have all my CNC stuff organized in this cabinet, as well as pliers, a few random sockets for whatever reason I have those in there. Drill bits, that sort of thing all goes right here. I do like the fact that the hutch closes. I thought at first I would be able to close this and keep the dust out, but if you saw the video, the review, there's quite a bit of gap all the way around, so that doesn't really work, so it just stays open all the time. There's very little dust actually gets in there, so it really didn't matter in the first place. So I could technically just take the door off if I wanted to. I do like having the pegboard so I can keep those tools at arm's reach when I want them, especially my squares and things like that, the stuff I use most often. My favorite radio in the house that I've ever owned actually is the Festool Top Rock. If you've never heard it in person, it sounds absolutely amazing. It's just mind-blowing. And it's basically a storage box with a radio on top. It sounds awesome. The great thing about the hutch is you can store stuff on top, and I have. I got the air cleaner up there. I got a sustainer up there, as well as my old miter saw, so that I can still have a 12-inch saw. That's the reason I kept it in, kind of partial to it. It's been with me 5 years. I decided to add some lumber storage to the shop since I was getting rid of all those shelves, and I used this, I think it's a Bora system that I bought on Amazon, and it's done very well. These are 4-foot boards that I have mostly on there. Attached it to studs. It's really solid. I'm not really worried about it falling down too much. I'm pretty sure it'll stay there, but I like having that storage up there. I have a system of getting up there that's pretty easy. Basically, I step off the top step onto the planer cart, onto the workbench, and then onto the CNC table, and I can access all of it. Sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. Now over here in the front corner of the shop, we pretty much made a full circle, is the CNC. This is the Shapeoko 4XXL. When I first got this, I worked with Carbide 3D on getting this, and honestly, they were the only ones that responded to me out of half dozen companies that I reached out to saying I wanted to partner with somebody on a CNC for the channel, and Carbide was the only ones willing to work with me. So huge shout out to Carbide. They have been extremely kind to me and just generous and just a pleasure to work with. They're very good people to work with. But I've used this a whole lot more than I ever thought I would. The first few months was kind of rough, me getting started and trying to learn CNC, not ever using it. But since I feel like I've kind of got my feet under me, this thing stays busier than I thought it would. And it's been a huge asset to the business. It's one of those things that if you're thinking about adding a CNC to your business, it will add another stream of income that you probably didn't even think about, or a few different streams, especially if you're making different products. And it's another employee that just, you put it to work and let it go. It's been a pleasure. I thought at first that it wasn't going to be big enough at about a 29 by 29 cutting area. I've yet to find anything that I needed to cut bigger than that for my purposes. A couple of other odds and ends in the shop that I haven't touched on is the flooring. I use horse stall mats. You can buy them at your local tractor store, farm supply store. They're 4 foot by 6 foot, 3/4 inch rubber mats. They've been a great addition to the shop. Once I got them in the shop and started kind of walking on them and things like that, I noticed my back and my legs weren't as tired. My feet didn't hurt when I got through working out here all day. So I've started adding them slowly but surely over time until I covered most of the floor space in here. The lighting I did a video on a while back. This has added a whole lot of light in the shop. There's 10 of these 8-foot LEDs in here. They daisy chain together. They're super simple to install. I hooked 5 on one circuit, 5 on the other, and just been awesome because I can see no matter what time of day or night it is. And they're only about 200 bucks for all of this light, so it's pretty inexpensive. Then I have a dehumidifier that I bought way before I got the mini split, and it makes a huge difference when you're in a humid environment for 2 things. One, if the air is drier in your garage or shop area, it doesn't feel as hot in there, especially in the summertime. So that helped with that. But it also reduces the moisture in the shop, and that matters in wood, right? So I'm able to bring wood in the shop, leave it for a couple days or a week, and it really brings down that moisture level in those wood pieces. So that's another benefit of having it. It wasn't cheap. I think it was like $250-ish when I bought it, but it has been an asset to the shop. And even with the mini split, it runs all the time. I just got a hose running outside to let the water run out. The garage door is insulated. It's just foam insulation. I think it's like an inch thick, and I just stuffed it in there between those panels, and it's worked out pretty well, especially since the sun rises, that's the east, and it hits this door all the way up till a little after noon in the summertime. So it really, really does help keep the heat down, and especially in the wintertime. It made more difference than I thought it would in the winter. Now, you may see my track saw tracks are hanging on those tracks. I have a video on, I think one of those 5 tools videos under 30. So if you search 7315 tools under 30, you'll see this little hedgehog looking thing on there. That's the video they're in. It just shows how they work. Let's go ahead and show you the studio, and then I'll come back out and tell you my favorite tools that I've ever gotten in the shop. All right, right in here is the 731 studio. Let me show you around. I got a 731 Woodworks sign that was made by a viewer that we really love. It's awesome. Put that right above the door before you go in. Welcome to the 731 studio. This is where I spend a lot of time editing videos or researching ideas or playing on the internet, whatever. This is the desk that we made on the channel a while back out of ambrosia maple. It's a beautiful, beautiful desk. Is it functional for this type setup? No, it's not. I wish I had thought ahead and done some things differently. Hey Mia, this is Mia. She's one of the pups here that live here in the house. This is my daughter's dog. She's a squishy, squishy pup. So this is set up to be a studio because we do a live stream here on YouTube every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time talking about mainly woodworking. Sometimes we get off into life and motivation and things like that, but we try to keep it woodworking focused. For the background, we used, this is Stage Skins, this is where we bought these from. They're basically expanded PVC and they absorb the light really well. That's why we chose these. Bar down here is an ADG Mega Bar. It just does different colors, and I have no idea how to work it. That's why it's that color, because when I started pushing buttons, things stopped working. So I finally got it back to that color and left. I need a remote for it. I just have never bought it. For the desk setup, I've got an ultra wide monitor from LG. I bought on Amazon, and that really helps me spread out, especially when I'm editing videos, because I can basically have my folders and files on one side and the editing software, I use Final Cut Pro, on the other side. For the audio setup for the live stream, I've got a Rodecaster Pro, the previous generation one that we bought 2 years ago, a year and a half ago when we started the live stream, just to give us better audio on the stream. I've got a Stream Deck to help me switch out scenes and videos and things like that on the stream in real time. Just push a button and it pops it up for me. Now once that's pre-programmed, it makes everything much easier. For the microphones, we went with the Rodecaster Pros, I believe they are. They're a little too directional, I think. I probably should have went with the Podcaster version. For one of the shelves that used to be in the garage, we cleaned it, or in the shop rather, we cleaned that up and brought it in, and now we use that as our shipping station organization area. So we can put our board butter up there, know how much we got on hand, if we need to make more mallet templates, any wood products we're selling, anything like that that's small enough to go on the shelf is where we keep it organized. It's helped us be more efficient in shipping. Also, all of our packaging, everything we need to ship is right there. Miss 731 also has her little corner of the world in here where she does her work as part of the business, and that's her desk and setup over there. For camera equipment use, I always get those questions. What am I using? Currently, you're looking at a Sony a7 IV with a 16 to 35 GM lens. It was quite a pricey investment that I made earlier this year when I jumped to 4K. For the microphone setup, it's a Comica system. It's a 2-mic setup, so if I do want to get some help on the video or have a guest on the video, I can use 2 mics at once, which has been a real positive. I had the Rode Wireless Go for a while. The batteries on those just didn't last very long. These use standard AA, so I just use rechargeables and swap those out as needed. I also have a GoPro camera that I use on a lot of close-up shots or overhead shots or get some time-lapse, things like that. I bought it a couple of years ago. It's good for not really caring if it gets a whole lot of dust on it, so I can put it in some situations that I wouldn't want this camera to be really close to. Also here on the desk, you may see this is a Canon M6 Mark II, I believe it was. So I mounted it to the desk so that I could do desk videos for different things. This chair is a Secret Labs chair. It's basically, it is a gaming chair that my oldest son bought one a couple of years ago. I've sat in it several times and it's absolutely super comfortable, but they're not cheap. But I did want to buy something that, since I was sitting here multiple hours a day, my back was starting to hurt really bad. Since I've gotten this chair, 0 back issues, and it works out well for me. It'll basically allow you to take a nap in it if you want. They even provide you with a pillow that magnetically sticks to the back, so night-night. So before I did this tour, I asked on my community tab on YouTube if they had any questions about the shop. MB come through and he said, would I rather fight a horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? So, what would your answer be? Which one would you rather fight? I went with the duck, because I can fight 1 horse-sized duck much better than I can 100 of anything. Some of my favorite tools that I've gotten over the years is the SawStop, probably main top thing, because it's so smooth and it's really helped up my game a little bit as far as woodworking. The tool wall has been super cool and organization-wise, and then this Husky workbench has also been a great addition. Fixing my miter station to be what it is now has really changed the way I look at the shop, because once you start cleaning things up, you want other areas to clean up, and that's kind of what happened with the miter saw. And then I took away those shelves and replaced them with this, just to give it an overall cleaner look. And being cleaner out here really makes me want to be out here more. It doesn't feel as chaotic. I fought it for a long time, but dust collection, I didn't want to pay that money for a dust collector. And so I would use a leaf blower and blow the dust out at the end of the day. And it wasn't safe, it wasn't healthy. And since I've gotten the dust collector and air cleaner, everything in here is cleaner. And I believe, in fact, that I am safer because of it, especially with the dust extractors that have the HEPA filtration built in too. Probably some of my best upgrades that have come to the shop. I've accumulated quite a bit of tools over the last several years via purchasing 90% of them. I've had some amazing gifts, as well as leveraged the channel for sponsorship deals on a few tools. Now, before I had all of this stuff, I was happy with the borrowed tools, just building things. Now that I have this stuff, I'm happy. It's nice to have them, but you can't take any of this stuff with you when you die. It's just gonna go away. My kids, if my wife and I go together, will likely sell all this stuff for pennies on a dollar at some estate sale. If I go before my wife, then she has no idea what this stuff is valued at and will likely eventually sell all this stuff off or give it away or whatever. It doesn't matter. My joy doesn't come from tools. My joy doesn't come from having stuff. This is just material things that won't matter in the end, because you can't take it with you. You've never seen a U-Haul behind a hearse. It's not going with you, folks. So it's nice to have this stuff. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy having it, but that's not where my joy comes from. My joy, seriously, comes from the Lord. If you'd like to know more about that, there's a link in the description to the story. Click on that, you'll see the video all about the story. So I highly encourage you to go watch it. If you like this video and you really want to see how far this shop has come, go watch the 2021 shop tour or the 2020 shop tour. I think you'll be amazed at what can be done if you pour enough sweat and time and money into a space. Clicking either one of those boxes, get you a big old virtual fist bump. See you on the next one.